You're listening to XVGM Radio. Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Mike.
And I'm Justin.
And this is episode 3, Board and Card Game Video Games. Quite a mouthful there, but we are diving deep into video games based on board games and card games. This is a really fun, unique topic. I think you were the one that suggested this one, right?
Yeah, it was just something that came to me recently as I've been playing a bit of like Uno on the PS4 and some other ones. But I had originally thought that this was going to be sort of a relaxing, easy listening sort of episode, and it still kind of is. But there are a few tracks I think that might surprise some of our listeners as well as us.
Yeah,
there are some really good, really smooth tracks, definitely. But there's a handful here that are just like kind of more upbeat, a little more poppy.
Definitely. I think a lot of the older school stuff that we're going to be going over is a lot more amped up. It's a lot more energetic and fun sounding, whereas a lot of the later stuff kind of takes advantage of better equipment, better hardware. Because of that, it kind of makes the music a lot more grandiose, I guess you could say.
Definitely.
But that track that brought us in just before is Monopoly on the Nintendo Wii that came out in 2008. The track that we listened to was Deco Board, and that was by Ian Livingstone. So what did you think of this one?
That was one of the boppier tracks. It definitely like big band, jazz. Could almost have been like from a stage production.
I'm going to say 2 words. Chips Ahoy.
Oh my god. Oh, the old Chips Ahoy commercial. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Just definitely, like, all I needed was the boom, 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 like the kettle drums to come in, and I would be like, oh my god, Chips Ahoy. Now I need to eat like an entire sleeve's worth of Chips Ahoy. But I probably shouldn't. But yeah, Monopoly for the Wii. I haven't played this one, but I mean, it's Monopoly. Like, this is one of my favorite board games growing up. I used to play this all the time with my grandmother.
I didn't know you were a masochist.
Yeah. No, I don't know what it was, but when her and I would play, it was a lot of fun. Like, we played fair, we didn't cheat, but I can't play this with my wife. I cannot play Monopoly with my wife because I played with a friend of ours, and the two of us kind of did, like, unofficial immunity on each other, and now she won't play because we beat her so bad.
That's, Monopoly can get really cutthroat.
It can get super cutthroat.
My understanding, I haven't played Monopoly in years,
yeah,
but my understanding of a lot of the frustrations that people people, including myself, I guess, have with it, is that we tend to play with house rules. Like, if you land on free parking, you get all the money that people put in from the taxes and stuff.
Yep,
You're not supposed to do that. Apparently, that really unbalances the game.
Yeah.
But
it's fun. It's so much fun to play like that.
I suppose.
Yep. So, yeah, I don't know. Just Monopoly is one of those games I used to play growing up, and I really enjoyed it. And I've played a couple of the video games over the years. I played the one on Super NES and the one on N64. My brother's also a huge Monopoly fan. He's a big board game fan, too. So he and I would play... I remember renting the Super NES version. We would play that, and I never really was a big fan of the music. So when I was looking for music, initially I was going to go with something more nostalgic. But then I thought to myself, I don't really like any of the music in Super Nintendo Monopoly, so I went with this one instead. Just, as you said, big band, grandiose, just really vibrant, and great music overall. I love this type of big band music. So
yeah, agreed. It's a lot of fun. In fact, listening to that might actually get me to play, the video game version of Monopoly.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of fun, especially like if you play online too. Like there's different like games that I don't know if this version has like an online mode, but that's one of the benefits of getting newer video games that are board or card game based, because you can kind of play these games at your own pace, and you can play with friends online and stuff like that. So, the technology has kind of brought everybody together, even though, you may not be able to play all together on the couch. You could still play online. So,
definitely. It's one of the reasons. I mean, one of the tracks coming up, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it definitely makes the entire experience a little bit more laid back, as far as I feel personally. If we were to play Monopoly and it was online, we were playing with each other, because it's a video game, the rules are sort of constrained by what the system knows that it can do. You don't have all these other things, or you don't see people acting up and making you want to rage quit or throw the game across the room. So I find it a little bit more relaxing. Just like, hey, it is what it is. I lost all my money. I went bankrupt. Oh well, I can't do anything about it.
Exactly. So the composer on that one was a guy named Ian Livingstone, and he's composed for a lot of newer games. He's kind of all over the place. He also composes for like television and feature films. He's got a huge list of music that he's done. For video games, he did I believe this is the GameCube version of X-Men 2 Wolverine's Revenge. I believe he did Buffy the Vampire Slayer as well, the one that came out on Xbox. Just to name a couple games, Grid 2, and Grid Autosport, so he's kind of known for doing that. He co-composed Napoleon Total War, Rome 2 Total War, and Attila Total War. His latest game, I guess, is he's been working on the F1 series. So he's done every game from F1 2010 all the way up to F1 2014 with Codemasters, as well as a couple other games I didn't mention, Battlefield 1943, Batman Begins. So he's done quite a lot of work, and it's mostly like very cinematic type of music, and I kind of feel like this kind of goes with that. I mean, you could easily picture this in like an Austin Powers movie or something like that,
Yeah.
So we're going to move into our first track, and again, we're going all over the place. We're going to be doing everything from this first track, which is an NES track, all the way up to, as we said, like later releases, like in the 2000s. So the first track we're playing is from an awesome soundtrack. Did I say soundtrack? Did I mean video game? No.
No,
I'm gonna say no, because the game itself is not that great, but it's Pictionary on the NES. This is a classic soundtrack. This game came out in 1990, and the song we're going to be listening to is Minigame 2 by Tim Follin. have returned to XVGM Radio, and that was the always rockin' soundtrack for Pictionary on the NES. That was the 1990 release, and the track was Minigame 2 by Lord Tim Follin.
Yes.
Yes, I am a big fan of this soundtrack. I discovered it a couple years ago, and it's one of those soundtracks where I'll forget that it's that good, and then I'll pick it up and listen to it again and just completely fall in love with it. It doesn't have a lot of tracks on it, but sometimes you don't need a lot of tracks to be totally rockin'.
Oh yeah, no, that's fair. I feel like I might have tried playing the Pictionary game on the NES years and years ago, but I don't have any solid memories of it other than it being very frustrating. Like many of the game show style or board game style games on the NES were, for example, Jeopardy.
Yes.
Or Family Feud. They just very frustrating to actually get things right or get the game to recognize that, you know, I said it right or maybe I didn't spell it right and stuff like that.
It's not exactly an accurate Pictionary game, and I know that Pictionary is kind of stretching the boundaries as far as board or card game, but in my mind, any game that you can play with friends around a couch is kind of like, that's not involving video games, is a board game, you know?
I feel like Pictionary is accurate to that theme, mostly because there's usually a board that you have to draw on, so there's a board involved, it's a board game.
Pretty much. Do you have a favorite Tim Follin soundtrack? I'm not going to do the... I'm not going to go through the long list of Tim Follin soundtracks because it is... We'll be here all day.
That's fair.
But do you have, let's say, 3 favorites to choose from?
Yeah. So, I mean, Tim Follin has done, a ton of great things, but I would say... right off the top of the list, Solstice on the NES is a game that I grew up with and absolutely loved the music for. I mean, it was very atmospheric. It wasn't really music that we would rock out to, but the music was fantastic. Spider-Man X-Men Arcade's Revenge.
Yes.
I mean, how can you not?
Absolutely.
And Echo the Dolphin, Defender of the Future. It was a newer game.
That's the one for Dreamcast, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, newer game on the Dreamcast. I don't know that the game itself really lived up to the old echoes, but the music was still really good. Yeah.
Speaking of echoing, I echo Spider-Man X-Men Arcade's Revenge. That was the first time I ever heard a Tim Follin soundtrack back when it came out. And I was a huge X-Men and Spider-Man fan. And playing that game, the music along with the gameplay was just top-notch. Just an absolutely phenomenal soundtrack. I'd also say Plock on the Super NES has a great soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
And then my third would be Silver Surfer on the NES.
That's fair. Yeah.
Love that, yeah. That's Pictionary. Not really much to talk about the game. It's Pictionary. It's, you try to guess what people draw out. The game itself, not so great. So you pick the next track. What do you got for us?
So next up, we have a song from the recent Uno game on Xbox One, PS4, recently in 2017. The track is called Wonderful, and not quite sure on the composer. I believe it's Stan Lepard, but we'll talk about that when we come back.
Cool.
welcome back. You have found yourself at XVGM Radio. That song was called Wonderful, off of 2017's Uno card game video game on the Xbox One and the PS4, and it was composed by Wang Yang.
Wang Yang. We had trouble finding out who actually composed this, but we're thinking it's Wang Yang. That's just... I don't mean to laugh, but it's just... It's such a... It rhymes. I don't know. It's funny.
It rhymes. I mean, one of the words means something different in English.
Yes.
I mean, it's always funny when a word means something else in your native language. I'm sure
you're referring, of course, to Wang Chunging.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Like
everybody
Wang
Yang
Chung
tonight.
Yes, everybody Wang Yang tonight. So now you were talking to me about this game during the break. You actually played the earlier version in. I think it was like maybe 2006, 2007-ish, yep. Which was on Xbox 360, and I remember also playing that. It was one of those games, it was like one of the first like arcade live games that you could play. But this one, tell me about it. Is it different?
It's only different graphically. I owned the one on the 360. I technically still own it, except for the fact that my 360 is dead, so I am unable to play it. But I did buy this one on the PS4 and have been playing it a lot recently, and it feels very much like the one for the Xbox 360.
Cool.
You can play against computer players, you can play online against real players, you can set up your house rules, whether or not you want to turn on like bluff challenging or the 7-0 rule, which I hate. There's a number of rules you can turn on and off. There's also, I don't think this mode existed in the Xbox One, there is a 2v2 mode, so basically you and your partner sit across from each other and you can see each other's cards and you can't see the cards to the left or right of you, and it's all about, trying to win the game based on what you both have. So if your partner, say, has a bunch of yellow cards and you maybe have a bunch of Uno cards to change the color, you want to keep trying to change it to yellow to get him to whoever goes out first, you both win.
Right. Yeah, it's been a long time since I played Uno, to be honest. I kind of like forget the rules until I like play a few hands, which that's kind of how I learn most card games and board games, is I'm like, all right, let's play around and I'll figure it out as we go along. Yep. So, but I know that when you and I play board games or card games, you're kind of like the dungeon master, if you will. You're kind of like the rule guy, so you have the uncanny ability to sit down and completely digest the rules, and then kind of like baby bird feed it to the rest of us when we play. And I'm just sitting in the corner like, all right, let's just play.
It's funny because that's how I feel on the inside.
Really?
I just want to get to the game.
Right.
But I don't know at what point in my life that happened. I do remember the first time I noticed it. I was at a friend's birthday party and they were trying to play a board game with a bunch of friends, and we were all kind of drunk.
Sure.
And they pulled me over and they said, Justin, come here. Take a look at these rules and figure out how to play. And I was like, I instinctively I just pick up the rulebook and start reading. And I go, wait, why? And she just looks at me and goes, because you're the game master.
See?
And then like I think back on it, and there's so many of these games that I've played, and I'm always the one like teaching people how to play. And I don't know when that happened to me.
I really don't know either. I as long as I've known you, for the many years I've known you, you've always been the game master.
Jeez.
So now you just need a jacket where on the back of the jacket it says like Captain J, the game master.
Oh my god. I'll carry around a zapper with me at all times.
Yeah. Or a deck of cards.
Or
like a deck of Uno cards. So Wang Yang worked on a few games that we know of. What do they work on?
So the one off the top that I know the best is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game that came out in 2010. I played the hell out of that game.
Yeah,
I know
same
you
here.
did as well.
Yep.
He also seemed to have worked on Castle & Co., the Smurfs & Co., the Smurfs & Co. Spellbound, and Monkey King Escape.
Yes, and to clarify, this guy is always labeled as a sound designer. We were really only able to find sound designer or like sound, like audio support.
Yep.
We were not able to find anything for this game regarding the actual composer. So this is what's in the credits of the game itself. So no, he didn't compose the soundtrack to Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game. That was Anamanaguchi. So just to clarify that. But yeah, so that's Uno.
What'd you think of the song?
I dug it. It was good stuff. It was very relaxing. I could totally picture. And you know what's funny is I remember playing the earlier version of the game that we were talking about earlier, and I remember that music, and the music and tone and sound to it all sounds very similar to this.
Right.
So very similar.
Yeah, it's actually why I almost miscredited composer to a different person because I thought that the music was the same, but then upon going back and listening, it's not the same soundtrack at all.
Right,
so,
right.
Different guy, but
yeah.
It definitely...
It's more of like a jazzier feel to it a little bit.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
It definitely helps to set the mood, and I mean, Uno can be, just like Monopoly, a kind of a cutthroat game when you're playing with friends, and I would say that the soundtrack definitely helps me to relax and not really care about what's going on. Like, oh no, I just ate 8 cards. Oh well, nothing I can do about it. Keep the game going.
I just picture you physically eating 8 cards, like knife and fork and everything. All right, so let's move on to our next track, which is from a game called Risk, the Game of Global Domination. This came out on the PlayStation 1 in 1997, and this track is the North America theme, and it's by a unknown composer. Ooh. Ooh. right, you have returned! That was Risk, the Game of Global Domination, and that was on the PlayStation 1. It was released in 1997, and that was the North American theme by Mr. or Mrs. Unknown Composer. Unfortunately, not a lot of information about this game out there. Risk I have not played since college, but I kind of wish that I knew that this existed, because I had no clue. But I remember playing the board game with my second roommate in college, my good buddy James, and we used to play this quite a bit, and I was terrible at it, admittedly so. So Risk is a strategy board game, and it's got a lot of, I don't know, I guess political elements to it, diplomatic elements to it, if you will.
You can create like alliances between the other players and stuff, but in the end, there can be only one.
There can be only one, just like the Highlander. Yeah, you control like armies with these different like little playing pieces, so it's pretty cool. It's fun. It was invented back in 1957 by a French filmmaker named Albert Lamouris.
That's interesting.
Yeah, pretty cool. So I know there's been a bunch of games, like video games for Risk. There's even like an iOS version that's out currently, but there was like a Sega Genesis version, PS1, PS2, Game Boy Advance, like a bunch of different versions. But I heard this track while looking for music for this episode, and it was unlike anything I'd heard on the PS1, because it had those like interesting like voice, like vocal samples with the Native Americans, like you know, and then it kind of like had these drums, very like tribal-ish, and then all of a sudden like this Tangerine Dream, like late 80s soundtrack comes rolling in. It's like a rolling of thunder and clouds. And it's just like really, it took the track in a place that I didn't expect it to go. Just very uplifting and very exciting, but at the same time kind of like somber a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
But they had like those Super Nintendo kind of style guitars in there, the MIDI guitars, which I could appreciate.
Definitely an interesting pick. Not having played the game on the PS1, I sort of assume that all of the video game versions of the game play mostly the same. I mean, there's not really a whole lot you can do to mess up Risk.
A couple more bells and whistles here and there.
Yeah. But the track itself, I understand why it's called the North American track, or the North America theme. As I mean, right off the bat, you have what sounds like Native American tribal chants in the drums, and it's very interesting to hear what they sort of put together, because I was also, the first time that I heard this track, I was kind of thrown when I hear this, and I think it's going to be very much of like a Native American type of a song, and then you get this other stuff in there that's like kind of contrasts with that, and it's not, it doesn't feel wrong. Like, it feels like a really good song. But it's weird. It does weird things to my ears.
My ears are broken. It kind of reminded me of something that you'd hear on like the Discovery Channel, or like A&E, or the History Channel. You know, something that would play in the background while they're discussing like Native American, you know, history and culture,
like in a documentary or something.
Yeah.
I can see that. I can see that.
So kind of, I guess, fitting for Risk. So I wish we knew the composer so we can find out more of what they've done. But if anybody knows the composer, shoot us an email at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
Alternatively, you could also tweet the information to us at XVGMradio on Twitter. But
oh, looks like our producer is telling me we have a call. Let's go ahead and take it. Hey caller, you're on the air with XVGM Radio. Who's this?
Oh, this is Kuros. I want to hear something from my game, Wizards and Warriors.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, that would be great if we were doing Wizards and Warriors or anything related to that, but we're doing a board and card game video game episode.
Oh, okay. Well then, how about Hero Quest? That's close enough.
All right, well, let's go ahead and listen to a track from Hero Quest. This is an unreleased game on the NES. The track that we're going to listen to is the title theme, and it's by the always impressive Neil Baldwin. right, welcome back. That was not my pick. That was Kuros's pick. Hero Quest on the NES. That was an unreleased game, and that was the title theme or the main theme by Neil Baldwin. That was just, oh my god. Well, the first time I heard it, I was just blown away.
Yeah, for a board game related game on the NES, that's a really epic track.
Absolutely. So Neil Baldwin has done a ton of epic tracks very similar to that. Best thing I can compare it to is Magician, the NES game in 1990. Very similar type of soundtrack. He's done a ton of work over the years. Just to kind of briefly touch on it, did a couple of the 007 games, Nightfire in 2002 and The World Is Not Enough in 2000, which has not only a very great Bond soundtrack, but that is a great Bond game in general. Did some of the Duke Nukem games on console, like 64 and 0 Hour, and also Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. He did the conversion, I believe, to the 3DO. He's done a lot of work with like conversions, and also he is kind of known for doing like some of the much older music from he came from like the Amiga era, like Amiga C64, stuff like that. Definitely very well known composer and very much loved. So Hero Quest, do you know what it is?
I do not.
Okay.
A game I've not played.
Yes. So Hero Quest is a Dungeons and Dragons style Milton Bradley board game that came out.
Oh, I have heard of this.
Yep. The box art itself is uncanny. It's got this hulking barbarian, very similar to Kuros from Wizards and Warriors, kind of swinging a sword, and there's all these orcs all over the place on the image, and it's just such an awesome, epic looking board game. It's like an adventure board game, kind of like a little bit like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
I remember getting this game when I was a kid and being like so very excited to play it. Then I realized how complicated it was, and I completely gave up on it. Like, I think I maybe tried to play it once. The problem is, so I have a little brother, and my little brother is 7 years younger than me. So playing anything with anybody, I would have to play with my friends. And I didn't really have that many friends back then, so it was very difficult for me to play this game because I know my parents weren't interested in it. So it was like this game that I bought that I couldn't play with anybody. There was all these like really cool like little figurines that I loved that you can like bust out of like their like the casing, and then like set them up with the little stands and put them. Everything was like grid based, like different rooms and stuff. You could also set up like the doors. The whole thing was very confusing. And like I said before, I'm not the sort to like really read through the rules, especially on a board game. Video games, I think, are a little different. I used to really enjoy looking at the art. So while I was looking at the art, I would read how to play the game back in the day. But when it comes to board games, I would always just be like, all right, let's just play. Somebody else figure out the rules and I'll just play. So that's kind of how I've always been when it comes to board games. And it's a shame that I never actually sat down and played Hero Quest, because I know that I would have liked it. And to be honest with you, if there was a video game that did come out, unfortunately this one was unreleased, but if this game did come out, I would totally have a lot of fun with it. Like, I would find friends to play it with, you know?
I mean, based on what the board game is about, the video game version would likely have been a lot of fun. Like, this seems like something that I would have liked as a kid too, if it had actually come out. It's a shame. Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but hey, it is what it is. I don't know what they would have done with it. Like, I don't know if they would have made the video game be like, I haven't seen any footage or anything, but I would imagine that if they were going to make this into a video game, they would either have to just literally translate it into a video game, which would be kind of difficult just because of the nature of the game, because it's very in-depth, and when you're playing a video game, especially during the NES era, controls are very limited as far as what you can do. So I would imagine that they would probably make it more like an action video game. But again, I'm not sure. I haven't looked up any information on the actual video game, so.
I mean, it depends on how the game was done. Like, if the maps were like quote unquote procedurally generated or anything, it might have been a bit difficult to do on the NES at the time. So they might have just been, a story that they threw at you and everything was sort of pre-generated. And you have to go through this dungeon or whatever. Could have been cool.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, let's move on. What's up next?
So next up is a game that I was very familiar with and still somewhat am from the 90s called Magic the Gathering. This was released on the PC in 1997 and the track is called Red Castle by Rolland J. Rizzo. Welcome back. That was the track Red Castle off of 1997's Magic the Gathering, which was released on PC, and that was composed by Rolland J. Rizzo.
That track reminded me a lot of the Risk track, but a lot more like, I guess sinister is the best word to put it. Very like booming, those kind of like plodding like kettle drums in the background sounded like, along with like some, not like Gregorian chants, but they were more like just overall choruses, I guess you could say. It was cool.
Yeah, no, the sinister is probably a good way to describe it. So just to talk a little bit about the game, I mean, if you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, it's a card game. There are 5 colors. Each color represents a different aspect of magic. Like there's green, which is very nature-based, blue, which is sort of water and control-based, white, which is like healing and life, black, which is death and decay, and red, which is generally just like power, fire, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
The game itself on the PC plays very much like the actual card game. You gather cards, but there's like adventure elements to it, so you're going around like getting in random battles with computer players, or eventually like you can play online with people, and you build up your collection of cards and make a deck out of it, and then ultimately in the single player version of this game you are trying to defeat the 5 wizards, which are each rooted in a different color, and this theme plays in the Red Castle when you're fighting the red wizard mage person.
So how is this game set up as far as the PC game itself? Like, is it set up where like you're looking at like a mat where there's like playing cards, you know, because I know that Magic the Gathering, the card game itself, has like a mat that you can like lay the cards out on. Is it kind of like that?
Somewhat. I mean, if you're thinking of like the mats that sort of show you where each thing goes. The PC game doesn't really have that because the cards automatically go wherever they are, but you can basically see like the battlefield. So you've got your cards, you can see your hand, and then you can see your opponent's like library and the cards that are on the table, and not the cards in his hand. It was pretty popular back when it came out. I think they originally, like when they made it, they shipped like 220,000 copies at first, and then the game ended up selling like over 400,000 copies.
Wow.
So both the card and video game were fairly prolific.
Yes, yes they were. I am not a Magic the Gathering guy. I have played it. I kind of don't like it. I don't know. It just doesn't grip me. But I used to play Star Wars CCG, the customizable card game.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I was a huge Star Wars nerd in middle school. So I was really big into it, so much so, like, I subscribed to the Star Wars magazine, like, everything. Like, I had all the toys, all that stuff. This is right around the time when the special edition came out. And they introduced a card game very similar to Magic the Gathering, but it was Star Wars themed. And I remember playing it a couple times at like tournaments and stuff like that, and I was never any good at it. You know, I don't have anything against these games, I just am not good at them and don't have the patience to learn like how to get good at them, so I just don't choose to.
Card games like Magic, and there was a Star Wars and a Star Trek. Yeah, like when Magic got popular, basically every franchise was like, oh, card games are cool. Let's try and riff off of that. And a lot of them didn't go very well. I enjoyed the game and the deck building process, but I was never really good at it. Like, I built decks based off of cards that I liked, as opposed to like building a deck for around a theme or around the ability to do something. So yeah, I had the same problem with Magic. I enjoyed the game, but man, I sucked at it.
Yeah, I was always like really gunning to get like in the Star Wars CCG game, like, you know, I'd be like, oh, I want to get all the main characters like Leia and Luke and you know, Vader and all that stuff, but then there would be like actual cards that you really should have collected in the game that actually do something, like the Death Star and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know, these just aren't for me. As far as cards go, I prefer like collecting cards to things like I used to collect Marvel Masterpiece cards. Oh, you remember those? Those. I like that stuff because it's just collecting. You know what I mean? And it's just like, oh, let me see if I can get the limited, you know, prototypes and the foil cards and all that stuff. That was 90s-tastic. So this was composed by Rolland J. Rizzo. I've never heard of that composer. What? Tell me a little bit about them.
Really? So Rolland J. Rizzo is probably more famous among people that play real-time strategy games. He is connected almost at the hip to Sid Meier. Okay. So he's done the music for, I think, every Sid Meier Civilization game ever. XCOM Interceptor, Star Trek Next Generation, Klingon Honor Guard in 1998 did both sound effects and music. Civ, Civ 2, Civ 4, the Civilization games, and it looks like a number of the XCOM games. Enemy Within, Enemy Unknown, XCOM 2, XCOM Interceptor. So he has done a good number of he's done a number of game music tracks and soundtracks. That's the word I was looking for.
Very cool.
Also, I see Spy Hunter in 1984. He's listed for audio adaptation, so it looks like he helped adapt the audio to one of the other systems that Spy Hunter came out on. Yeah,
possibly, especially since this guy sounds like either a European or Western composer. Possibly like the Amstrad CPC version of Spy Hunter or BBC Micro. You know, something like that, the ZX Spectrum, you know, most likely converted it to those. Because I know the NES version, I believe, was done by Naoki Kodaka from Sunsoft, Interestingly enough, we have a game that is right out of the 90s as well. This is a Super NES game called Othello World. It was a Super Famicom exclusive. Came out in 1992. It's based on Reversi, which is later called Othello by Mattel. And the track that we're going to be listening to is Sky Castle Game, or Sky Castle Level. And the composers, I believe, are either cousins or sisters. You may remember one of them as a more famous composer, Manami Matsumae, and Kimitaka Matsumae. So let's give it a listen.
From the makers of Don't Wake Samus and Operation C, it's Grand Theft Auto, the board game.
Awesome!
Each player picks a morally questionable game piece to play as. Go around the board by rolling the dice and rob each neighborhood you enter. With the stolen money, become a drug lord. Buy and sell people like property, put up hotels and brothels. Try not to land on the police notifier space, otherwise you'll gain a star. Gain 5 stars and it's jail time for you.
Aw, man!
That's right, kid who shouldn't be playing this game. Say, where are your parents?
Parents?
Grand Theft Auto the board game. Available at all game stores everywhere. Make sure to buy it for your kids and completely ignore the ESRB ratings the clerk warns you about. Buy it today from Hammer Brothers.
We're back. You're back with XVGM Radio. We're all back. Everyone's back.
Yay!
Yay! So that was Othello World, and that was the Super Famicom exclusive from 1992. The track was Sky Castle Game, or Sky Castle Level, and it's by Kimitaka Matsumae and Manami Matsumae. So Manami Matsumae, definitely more famous than Kimitaka Matsumae. I believe they're cousins. I believe that Kimitaka is actually a male, and Manami Matsumae, of course, is a female composer from Capcom. Did a lot of really infamous games from them. Mega Man, UN Squadron, Legendary Wings, Magic Sword, Mercs, Final Fight. I mean, the list goes on and on. Also jumped ship to later work with Sunsoft as well. And they came back to do some more Mega Man 10. And also their last game that they worked on was Mighty Number 9 in 2016. They were the lead composer on that. So,
awesome.
Yeah, she's one of my favorites. So she does really solid work. Kimitaka Matsumae worked on a couple of games. Download 2 was his first game in 91. He did the PSG music on that. Othello World in 92, and then jumped to Vegas Stakes in 93, which Vegas Stakes came out on the Super NES. And later worked on games like Bonk's Revenge in 1994, Super Bomberman 5, and then from Hudson jumped over to Konami, worked on a couple of the Beatmania games. Beatmania Append Got a Mix. Worked on games like Phantom Crash and Siren. And Dragon Quest Swords, that was the Wii Dragon Quest game. Did the sound effects on that. Last game that they're credited for is 2009's Katamari Forever, which they did remixes and produced the music. So,
awesome. Good
yeah,
game.
Yeah,
good list.
Definitely. So, Othello World is Reversi, or Othello, as it's known. It's kind of similar to like Go, like the Japanese board game Go. There's like black and white little dots everywhere on the square. I'm not sure how to play it really.
Yeah, I believe it has something to do with like you place your piece and then the pieces that are around it get
they get flipped. Yeah.
So
or at least that's how you play Go.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
I've never played Reversi or Othello either, so I'm not a game master on that one.
Yes. No, you are not. We'll need to get you the rule list. So I love this track because it just screams Baroque era, and I
really funny that you say that.
I love Baroque classical music. It's my favorite classical music. Just that I wouldn't even say it's a harpsichord. This kind of sounded like more along the lines of if you've ever played ActRaiser on Super NES. The organs on that, it sounds very familiar.
Agreed. I'm very surprised that you like Baroque music, what with your enjoyment of Castlevania and all.
Yes, I know, right? You would have never figured that one out.
Doesn't make any sense.
No, not at all.
But you know what they say, if it ain't Baroque, it's probably something else.
Oh, boo. Boo.
But yeah, no, that was the first thing that I thought of as well when I heard the organs.
Oh, Mike picked the Castlevania track.
Right. I was like, I thought we were doing board games. But no, it screamed Baroque to me as well, and it's very, very well composed. And I mean, I like the organ runs that they have in it, and just the entire thing is very pleasant to listen to.
You won't go Baroque with this track.
Now we're even.
All right, there we go. So let's move on. What do you got?
So next up, we're going to hear the title screen theme from 1993's Battleship that was released on the NES, and this was composed by Mark Knight.
Ooh.
Thank you for listening to XVGM Radio. That was the title screen theme from 1993's Battleship, released on the NES, and that was composed by Mark Knight.
Yes. That was a very, I don't know, I guess you could say like militant.
Military, yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a very military feel. You've got the snappy snare drums in there. The main melody sounds very familiar to me, and I'm probably just an idiot who can't recognize the tune that it actually is. But every time it plays, my brain is searching for something. I feel like I've heard
like
this da 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 da.
Yeah. Are you thinking it came from a video game, or are you thinking it is...
No, like a non-video game song, possibly something like a popular Navy song, considering the material is for Battleship. And it may just be that it references or is inspired by naval songs, and that's why it comes to mind. My brother was in the Navy, and I mean, I was in marching band in high school.
Same here,
and middle school, so we did the Memorial Day Parade, and we always played like Anchors Away and stuff like that. So I'm somewhat familiar with some of the music, and if it actually is the tune of a song that I know, I'm going to kick myself. But it's
probably a song that you played like multiple times that you has been just lost to time.
Possibly.
Yeah. So Battleship, I don't know. I used to play this one. I used to get really frustrated.
Really?
Yeah, because people would always cheat when they played me in it.
Oh,
so they'd always
move the ships around?
Yeah, well, they'd either move the ships around or they would like try to sneak a peek at my ships. Yeah, no.
You knew terrible people.
I know, right? God. Yeah. But I can't imagine how this would work on the NES. Like I get how it would work in the modern day times, with online connections, you know, that way the other person never sees your board.
Right, just like Uno and whatnot, like you can see your cards, not somebody else's.
Or this would work really well on like a DS, for example.
Oh yeah, perfectly, considering the clamshell.
Yeah, exactly. But on the NES, I mean,
it had to be one single player.
It must have been. And what is it like? Okay, what the other person has to like close their eyes while like the other
switch the controller back and forth, and you have to leave the room.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I should try to play this one because, you know, sometimes you just never know how they're going to do it. But I've never heard of anybody raving about Battleship on the NES. Right. So, but no, I dig the track. I mean, you know, it's definitely got that militant vibe going for it, and you know, I like it. It doesn't really like make me want to do anything other than jump back on the bass drum and the marching snare and start walking in a straight line. So yeah,
down the road
somewhere, you know, during a super hot, sweaty July 4th or a Memorial Day parade. So
don't forget to stay in step.
Yes,
otherwise you get yelled at.
Yep, of course.
Yep.
So Mark Knight composed this one. I've heard the name, but I don't know that much of what they've done.
So you may have played some of the games that Mark Knight has done music for, or at least been part of the audio team for. The Dirt games, Dirt 2, Dirt Showdown. There is a game called Quake 3 Revolution that came out. He did audio production for that.
Looks like he also did work with Ian Livingstone with the F1 series as well as Grid.
I see him as lead sound designer on F1 2001. He also did music in Duke Nukem 3D, which I'm sure some people have played.
Yeah.
And then there is the ever-famous Mario's Time Machine. He did music for that.
Don't forget Super Alfred Chicken and Alfred Chicken.
Those are the next ones I was going to mention.
Yes. Excellent.
He also did, just want to mention the music for Wing Commander on the Amiga.
Okay. I don't know if you know this, but he also goes by Mark Skimpy Knight.
Really?
I do not lie. That is his...
Also known as...
Also AKA, yes. So, Mark, we are fans.
Definitely.
Especially of that name. That's awesome.
It looks like once again we have another caller coming in. Give me just a sec. Let's hit this up. Caller, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you. I am Professor Plum. You know, from the game Clue.
The game or the movie?
The movie, the game. Does any of it matter?
I guess not. What can we do for you today, Professor?
Well, I would like to request a song from Clue, the board game, the video game. Boy, that's redundant. Who plays video games anyhow?
Fair enough, sir. Any particular track you want to hear? Okay.
That didn't sound good.
No, but I'll go ahead and play a track for you, and hopefully you hear it. This is Elementary off of 1992's Clue on the SNES.
Hope nobody got to him.
Yeah. Welcome back. That was Elementary off of 1992's SNES Clue, and it was composed by someone that we do not know. We were unfortunately unable to find composer information for this game. So,
yeah, it happens.
Yeah, if you happen to know who did the music composition on this, definitely hit us up, because I'd like to know who did the soundtrack for this game.
Yeah, not much to talk about, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Have you played Clue on the Super NES?
I actually have.
Okay.
It was probably one of the first, if not the first, board game video game I ever played. And unfortunately, I had never played Clue before. So I was trying to play this with a friend, and I had no idea how to play, no idea what was going on.
Yep.
It wasn't until like a couple years later that I actually played the board game, and then I had a better understanding of what I was supposed to be doing.
Oh, okay. You know what it was? It's because you got the rule book, and you started reading the rule book.
Yeah. Funny enough, you mentioned that you always read the rule books for the video games as a kid. That was the one that was what I did not do.
Oh,
I'd put the game in and I'd play it and just try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like go in blind.
Huh.
It might have helped if I had read the rule book to this game, if the rule book to the video game actually had the rules. Might have.
What's really interesting is that even to this day, in 2018, when we're recording this, you can go on Hasbro's website and read the manual to this video game.
Really?
Yes, I found it. I was like looking up information about the game, and then all of a sudden I found the manual, because I was trying to look up the composer, hoping that maybe if I flip through the manual I'll find some credits. And I couldn't find any, but what I did find was the manual on Hasbro's actual website. Which I thought was pretty weird, that they have a PDF printout of a Super Nintendo game from like 30 years ago.
Huh.
So weird. So, yeah. So I have not played this one on Super NES, but I have played Clue many, many times. And, of course, I've seen the movie. The movie is a really fun time.
It is a gem.
Yes.
My favorite part is the multiple endings.
Yep.
And the story behind the multiple endings. Because if you've seen the movie, you know that like it ends 3 times and there's 3 different ways that everything goes.
Yep.
But if you saw this movie when it debuted in theaters, you only saw one ending.
One ending, right.
And then if you went to talk to your friends about it and they saw a different ending, they were like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. My favorite part was the French maid. Hey-o! No, my favorite part was actually Tim Curry.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Tim Curry more or less made this movie. The entire cast was phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely.
Christopher Lloyd.
Michael McKean.
And Madeline Kahn.
Yep.
I mean,
it's a phenomenal movie, so if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But
yes.
Yeah, so the track, what do you think?
The track itself was really nice. It felt almost like the music from the movie. Like, I don't think that it was meant to, but like there was a lot of this sort of, I don't know how to describe it, like
investigatory style kind of,
and sort of like music that you would expect to hear at like a manor, like
at a dinner party,
or in like the parlor or the study, before somebody murders you, But yeah, it felt very much like more or less like chamber music.
Yeah, no, I agree. This soundtrack overall, I feel like it lacks energy. Yes. And it needs a shot in the arm of something. I don't know. Maybe like
adrenaline.
Like a wrench.
Yeah, like a wrench.
Like a lead pipe.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe
candlesticks.
Yeah.
Yeah, rope. I don't know. Maybe it needs to be hung. I don't know. But yeah, that's my issue with the song. The composition is great, but my issue is that sound font. It's very flat sounding. It's not like, I would imagine if you heard this on the Genesis, it would probably sound even worse. It'd probably sound very like twerpy.
Yeah.
You know, like bah, 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 bah. But here it's just interesting because I'm listening to both the main lead melody and the kind of the background melody as well. And both are really interesting to listen to, but I feel like they're too similar and that they really needed some sort of difference. Like, we mentioned harpsichord earlier, maybe like throwing a harpsichord in for the background sound, and then making the main lead maybe a little bit more symphonic sounding.
Like a horn or something.
Yeah. I don't know. But that would be my advice if I were to suggest it to whoever composed this, if they were to remaster it, if you will.
Oh, so, yes.
But yeah, that's it. So I guess we're moving from one game that is a board game that's more about investigation to another game that is more about just book smarts and learning words. This is Scrabble on the PC. This came out in 1999. The track is called Blue Waltz. You have returned to XVGM Radio, and that track that you just almost fell asleep to was Scrabble. That was the PC release in 1999. This is Blue Waltz, and the track was composed by, we believe, Jim Crew. So what do you think of this track, first off?
I thought it was really nice.
So smooth.
Yeah, very smooth. Smooth like butter.
Yes, or like eating chocolate chip, soft, chewy cookies while drinking a giant glass of ice cold milk.
In front of the fireplace.
In front of the fireplace.
In pajamas.
In pajamas, while wearing bear slippers.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes.
I absolutely love the bass line in this song.
Oh, so good.
It's just, I think that's what really makes it as smooth as it is. Mm-hmm. It's just do.
Oh, and that twinkly piano.
Yes.
It's just, the whole thing fits together so well. And I happen to really love this type of like smooth jazz, swing jazz kind of vibe that it's going for. So I absolutely dig this type of music. So it's great music to listen to if you're just looking to relax. And playing Scrabble, it's a game that needs to make you think. So you can't have something, while you're thinking of words to put down, trying to figure out triple word scores and all that sort of thing. It's not the kind of game where you need like crazy frantic music or anything. Like, you need something relaxing, something chill. And this track in particular has a great vibe to it. The rest of the soundtrack is all different types of music, but this track in particular really stood out to me, so I wanted to play it. So Jim Crew worked on a number of different video games. He's actually very well known for being a jazz musician, or like a classic jazz pianist. He's done a bunch of different music, mostly for film, TV, and video games. He's done stuff like production for singers and songwriters. He's got a website, it's jimcrewmusic.com, and regarding video games specifically, he worked on some Transformers game in Activision, probably a very bombastic classical soundtrack. He worked on, I'm just gonna kind of jump around here, Island Casino, Scrabble 2, so he must have did the sequel.
Scrabble harder.
Yes, Scrabble 2, Scrabble harder. Train Set Go, Warhammer 40k, and Ghost Recon. So yeah, he's done a bunch of stuff, but it's all mostly like that either very bombastic classical type of movie soundtrack style, or a lot more laid back, kind of like puzzle games, casino games, those types of things. So pretty cool. I haven't played this version of Scrabble. I am almost positive I owned this version of Scrabble, though.
Really? For the PC?
Yeah, I remember buying a new laptop right around this time, because it was right before I was going to college. Yeah, because I went to college in 2001, so I think I bought a laptop, and this game, along with a bunch of other games, came with it for free as part of like freeware. I don't know if it was this version or a different version, but I don't know. I never actually played it, but it's one of those things where I'm like, did I own this game? Like, just like lost to time. But yeah, Blue Waltz is the name of the track. It's just, it is such a blue waltz. It's so relaxing, and it's definitely something you can sip some tea to.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna save this for a cold winter day, snow day, and just start a fire in my house. And, I don't have a fire.
Start a fire.
Set my house on fire and just listen to Blue Waltz while everything burns.
Gather a bunch of trash in the middle of the room, just light it on fire, and maybe like put it behind like a fake TV screen, and just like hang out, watch this fire like explode in your house. Your wife comes home, she's like, "What are you doing?" "Oh my god!"
Like, "No, this is fine."
No, yeah, this is fine. This is fine. Have you heard this song? This is fine. So, all right, what do you got for us?
All right,
this is our final track.
For the last track, we're going to hear the main theme of 2007's Carcassonne, and this was released on Xbox 360 for the Xbox Live Arcade. The song itself was composed by SomaTone Interactive Studios.
Cool, let's give a listen to the main theme.
Welcome back, listeners. That was the main theme from Carcassonne, and that was released on the Xbox 360 Live Arcade in 2007 with music done by SomaTone Interactive Studios.
You mean it's not Carcassonne?
No, nor is it Carcass 1.
So I know nothing about this. It's always one of those games that I would scroll through on Xbox Live and would see the game and be like, oh, I know nothing about this. See you later, you know?
Yeah, I don't remember if I bought it because someone else had recommended it, or I don't remember why I ended up with this game, but I was definitely glad I did. It's a multiplayer game. I think you can do up to 4 people. I don't remember if the Xbox One did it online, because we always just played it in-house, mostly on the couch. I don't think you need, no, it wasn't a pass the controller game. You could have everybody on their own controller, or you could pass the controller. But the game itself, it's one of these board games that you see nowadays where the game itself, once you get into it and start playing it, it's not bad, but trying to explain the game to people is
so it's not like Catan. Is it like Catan?
Not exactly. No. Like I would put it in a similar box with Catan.
Okay.
But like with Catan, you have this board where you have all of these resources that are set depending on where, like, what the picture is on them, and then every turn, you know, it generates resources and stuff.
Sure.
This game is similar in that it deals with tiles. So you pick a tile up, and then you have to put it down and match it near other tiles. Like, so it might have a road on it, it might have part of a castle on it, or it might just be like a field. So you have to match like roads to roads or castle parts to castle parts and stuff. Then you have these little tokens that are colloquially called meeple. It's a portmanteau of my people.
Right.
But you put it on the board, and whatever area that it is touching, like, all-encompassing, you get points for that. So, like, if you put it down inside of a castle area, when the castle area is finished and closed off, you get points depending on how big that is. Or if you put it in the middle of, like, a field, you get points for that.
Right.
But people can, you know, block you or, like, close it off with roads and stuff. So it's an interesting game to play. It makes a lot more sense when you play it. Like I said, trying to explain the game is very difficult because there's so many little different intricate things, and basically you don't really understand it until you finish your first game.
Gotcha. This music itself reminds me of something that I'd hear in a Ren fair.
Exactly.
Yes, it's very relaxing and soothing, but at the same time, it's different than the Blue Waltz track that we listened to previously. It's more medieval.
Yes,
I guess you could say.
Yep. Which makes sense because the game is set. The game itself has sort of a medieval setting.
Yeah, it's a lot of flutes,
castles. Yep, flutes. The little, I don't know what you call the types of drums.
Bongos.
Maybe bongos. They sound a little bit deeper than bongos. I think,
what's a medieval bongo? A mongo?
A mongo.
A mongo.
A mango?
A mango? Yes.
But yeah, it definitely has that very medieval vibe.
Yeah.
And the flute melody almost sounds familiar. I know the first time that I heard it, I almost thought it was Castles in the Clouds from Les Mis.
Okay.
But it's definitely not. It's just, it has a similar, like, progression.
Interesting. So, SomaTone, what have they made?
So, SomaTone Interactive Studio is a music studio that has worked on hundreds of games.
Wow.
So going through all the stuff that they've done will be a little bit difficult, but to try to capture a couple of the games that people might have heard of, Bejeweled Blitz Live is not necessarily a major game, but I feel like most of us have heard of Bejeweled, know what it is. I saw Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, new and tasty. It came out in 2014.
Delicious.
The Ice Age Adventures game that came out in 2014 as well. Call of Duty Heroes.
A lot of like mobile games too.
Yes.
Like Marvel Heroes and stuff like that.
Doodle God.
Courage, yeah.
Might and Magic, Clash of Heroes. Doodle Kingdom. Ooh,
Doodle Kingdom.
Ratchet and Clank Into the Nexus.
So it sounds like they've kind of like a studio for hire.
Yes.
So looks like the company was founded in 2002. Two guys founded it, Kane Minkus and Nick Thomas, and their headquarters is in California. And they have studios in LA, Munich, and Beijing.
Wow, so they're all over the place.
Yeah. Sounds like they do not only music, but also like sound design and voiceover work as well. So they're kind of a jack of all trades of audio, so to speak. So very cool. So that is our show. That is board games and card game video games. And I'm interested in what you guys think, what your favorite pick of the show was. Leave a comment on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/XVGM Radio. You can also check out our website at xvgmradio.com.
If you're on Twitter, you can tweet to us at XVGM Radio. You can also email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
You got it.
But speaking of our listeners' favorite tracks, what was your favorite track?
Ooh, lots of really good tracks today. Oh man, it's a tie between either that Scrabble track, Blue Waltz, Othello World, or Hero Quest. I'm gonna say Hero Quest, and the reason being is because I think of all the tracks, this one got me the most pumped to re-listen to it.
Yep.
And then for this runner-up would probably be that Scrabble track.
That's fair. I was actually thinking the exact same thing. I would pick Hero Quest for the exact same reason.
Yeah.
It was very energetic. It was very like pumpy and a lot of fun.
Yes.
But just to be contrary and not pick the exact same thing as you, I will probably go with that Othello track.
Okay.
Othello World, the very Baroque, very almost Castlevania-y.
Yes.
And that was also very fun, I have to say. I would listen to that track again.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the Pictionary track, definitely I know that there's a ton of Follin fans out there. Great track, amazing track. But I think when we were picking tracks for this, Hero Quest really stood out to me the most. Pictionary I've heard so many times over and over and over again, it wasn't new to me. So it was like, oh yeah, that awesome Pictionary track that I've heard millions of times. But the Hero Quest track was like, whoa, I'd never heard this before. This is awesome. So that's kind of how I felt about it.
Definitely.
Yes. So tell us how you felt about it in all those various different formats. We want to know what you guys think of the podcast. Also, please give us a rating on iTunes. We'd love to know what you thought of the podcast, what didn't work, what did work, what you liked, what you didn't. Please be constructive and let us know. I want to also announce our next episode. So what do we got coming up?
So next episode, episode 4, is going to be all about Guilty Gear.
Ooh.
We are going to dive into the rockin' music of Guilty Gear.
This will wake people up.
Oh, absolutely.
After this episode.
After this episode, with a lot of the sort of easy listening.
Yeah.
You're not going to have an easy time next time.
No.
It's going to be, as they say, heaven or hell, let's rock.
Yes, very good. All right, well, this is Mike
and Justin
signing off for XVGM Radio.